Hello, dinglings. My name is Michael Stevens, and you are here just in time for another episode of Michael's Toys. Have you ever spun a penny? It's amazing. Watch this. As the penny comes to a stop, its wobble will become more and more vigorous. That's what you're hearing. But its spin will decrease. Watch how Abraham Lincoln spins slower and slower and slower. Of course, a penny will not spin forever here in the real world because air resistance, friction, vibration, all those kinds of things rob it of energy, and it eventually runs out and lays flat right down there on the table. But how long can a coin spin for? Well, in 1990, Joseph Bendick invented Euler's Disk. It's a spinning coin. Of course, the coin in this case is a very large and heavy steel disc. There are no batteries here. There's no magnets, nothing like that. It's just a piece of metal spinning on a mirror. But the design is pretty much a trade secret. But watch how well this spins. You ready? Here we go. Euler's Disk, quite phenomenal. The disk spins, because that's what I made it do at first, but then it begins precessing because of gravity. Precession is a change in the orientation of an object's rotational axis. As far as Euler's Disk goes, precession works like this. When I first spin the disk, it spins around a vertical axis that runs through this. Whoa, we're not ready for the tilting yet. It spins around an axis like this, right? But unless I spin it perfectly such that it never tilts, it will eventually tilt, and then gravity will do its work. And gravity causes that axis of rotation to precess like this. So we've got a disk spinning this way, and then all of a sudden, its rotation axis begins pointing all around in a circle. Oh yeah, I'm actually getting pretty good at doing precession with just my hands. Old Precession puppeteering, you're welcome. Now, the reason Euler's Disk spins for so long is that it's been specifically designed to lose energy as slowly as possible. Now, we don't know exactly how the inventor did this, because like I said, it's kept as a trade secret. Only one company sells this toy. But you can tell that the mass of the disk matters. If it was lighter, it wouldn't have as much inertia, and air resistance and friction, that kind of stuff, would take more of its motion away more quickly. But if it was too heavy, if it was heavier than this, it might have more of an issue with greater friction and deformation of the base of itself because of its weight, and that would rob energy from it. It also has this really interesting curve on one side, and that's the side that you want it to roll along. The way that curve works, as opposed to the sharp corner on the other side, must help the disk lose less energy as its angle to the table changes. The final result is phenomenal. In many ways, Euler's Disk operates like a gyroscope. It's why it precesses, and it's why it doesn't just flop over like that. So let's take a look at a gyroscope. But first, let's talk about precession. What is it? Well, if we imagine that this baseball is a satellite orbiting around the Earth, and that the satellite's orbit is somewhat like this, sort of around the ecliptic. Perfect. Now what happens if, while it's orbiting in this horizontal plane, I come in and I push it down. I apply a force, a quick little impulse, boom, right there to the satellite. What'll happen? Will it get hit by the force and go straight down? No. The acceleration induced by my impulse will just combine with the velocity the ball already has in the horizontal plane. So we have this kind of motion, the motion from my force going down, and we'll wind up with a combination, a sort of diagonal motion. That means that the ball will, when struck, let me use this hand, the ball when struck, boom, will start orbiting like this in what is, in relation to us, sort of a diagonal orbit. Now this is really, really interesting because it means that the effect of my force, which is pushing down, is not felt within the line of that force, but instead is seen 90 degrees ahead in the original rotation. Take a look at my favorite demonstration of this happening. I just love to play with this as like a fidget toy. Little disc of cardboard and a pencil. If the disc is not spinning and I blow here on this side that's near me, it tilts down. The part that I blow on is pushed down. It's pretty obvious, especially if you've seen my episode on spinning, in which I literally do this same demonstration. But watch what happens when I get the disc rotating and I do the same thing. I blow on the back. It tilts to the right. Keep in mind that the disc is spinning when looked at from above clockwise. And just like what I was saying with the orbiting satellite, the effect of my force, my air blowing down on the disc here, is seen 90 degrees ahead in the rotation. So instead of the disc going down here, it goes down 90 degrees ahead. That's because the acceleration from my breath combines with the velocity all the mass of the disc already has. If I blow here, tilts to the right. If I spin the disc counterclockwise, it should tilt to the left. Ho, pretty awesome, right? So this is where gyroscopic stability and precession come from. Now watch what happens if I always blow on the side of the disc that is down, the lowest part of the disc. It precesses. Its axis of rotation moves around. This is exactly what happens in a gyroscope. Of course, it's not breath moving around, it's just gravity constantly putting a torque on the object according to how it's oriented. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a gyroscope, which consists of just a spinning disc on an axle surrounded by a cage so that it can be held and manipulated and the effects of rotation can be felt. If the disc is not rotating and you balance it on its axle, it falls off. But if the disc is spinning, we're going to see the same behavior we saw from this cardboard disc. It'll balance, but because no one's perfect, there will always be just a tiny amount of skewness that causes a torque from gravity. Gravity operates from the center of gravity of this top, which is, we'll just assume it's pretty much right there in the middle, but the base is exerting a normal force like this. Those two forces are not in line, so we get a torque, right? Rotation. Well, if gravity starts pushing this way, what's going to happen? We know that that effect of gravity will be seen 90 degrees ahead in the rotation. So if the disc is rotating clockwise when seen from above, a torque this way will manifest as motion this way, 90 degrees ahead of the rotation. But look what's happening now. Now, because the center of gravity is here and the base is sort of in front of the center of gravity, from my perspective, the torque is now going to move the gyroscope down this way if it weren't spinning, but it is. So now gravity's effect is seen 90 degrees ahead in the rotation here. So the gyroscope tilts that way. Now the torque operates like this, which means its effect will be seen 90 degrees ahead this way, so that it'll tilt like this. And all of a sudden, we've got ourselves a gyroscope that just doesn't fall over. Instead, it precesses. All right, let's see this in action. I'm going to take a string and poke it through a hole in the axle of the gyroscope. This end is a little sharper. Ow, okay, perfect. Now, I'm going to turn the gyroscope and wind the string around that axle. Perfect. When I pull the string, while holding the cage, not the disc will spin up really quickly, and it's going to be spinning clockwise when seen from above. But I think I'm going to turn it over so that the notched side, which is for balancing on a string, is not the one on the base. So the disc will be spinning counterclockwise, which means we should see counterclockwise precession. Here we go. I'm holding the cage, pulling the string, turning the gyroscope over, and ta-da! It appears to be defying gravity. But in reality, all it's doing is taking the effect of gravity and constantly relocating it around in a circle. So gravity never has time to fully topple the thing over. But as the disc slows down due to friction and air resistance and vibration, gravity's torque becomes a larger part of the influence, the velocity every piece of mass on that disc has, and the precession becomes greater and greater. As you can see, the precession is much more dramatic now, and the gyroscope will continue lowering, and the precession will speed up until the gyroscope is no longer able to stay up and it falls down to the ground. It's pretty dang amazing. Spinning objects can behave quite unintuitively. And what is Euler's disk but a spinning disk? Well, a few other things. Euler's disk has no axle, and there's no cage to hold it. So when it precesses, instead of moving around like this, balanced on the edge of a spoke here, it just sticks one of its edges right down on a surface, which means that because of Euler's disk's precession, it also rolls. One of the edges is in contact with the surface as it precesses. And there's a relationship between the speed of precession, the angle the disk is at, and how quickly it spins. That relationship is caused by the fact that the greater the angle between the disk and the table, the smaller the circle is that the disk rolls around due to its precession. Once the disk is really low like this, as it precesses, the edge touching the table traces out a circle that's much closer in size to the circumference of the disk itself. At the limit, when the disk is flat on the table, the edge of the disk touching the table is touching a circle with the same circumference, but up here, it's really tiny. You can observe this effect yourself. I'm going to use a roll of tape because this is really nice and easy to see. If we mark off a line on the circumference right here, perfect, and then we carefully roll without slipping the ring of tape around a circle, we can see that if that circle is a lot smaller than the circumference, after rolling all the way around, we'll still have some space left. If we roll in this direction across that part of the tape, we won't come back to the purple line that I've drawn if we started there. So it will appear as though the ring is spinning. Watch this. I'll start with the line on the ground, and then I'm going to roll, not slide, but roll the tape around a little tiny circle. And look at that. I've completed one precession, but where's the purple line? It's not down there anymore. Now it's all the way up here. The disk has spun quite a bit. But if the disk's angle with the table is really shallow, like that, then a rotation takes us, a precession takes us almost all the way around the circumference, and when we get back, the line has only moved a little bit. The disk has only spun a little bit. So that's why the spinning penny sounds more and more vigorous. That's because the precession is making that sound, even though Abraham Lincoln himself, or the tails side, appears to be spinning even more slowly. Both of those are true. The disk is spinning more slowly, but precessing more quickly. Wait, but hold on. Why does the rate of precession increase? Well, just like as we mentioned with the gyroscope, the spinning of the disk slows down due to friction, which means that gravitational torque becomes a larger proportion of the effect on all the mass. But also, as the disk loses to gravity and drops down, and the angle between the disk and the table gets smaller, the moment arm that gravity acts on gets longer. You can think of the disk like a lever, right? When it's really steep like this, it's pivoting from a point, I'll use the pencil to point, it's pivoting from a point right here, and it's being pushed down from the center of mass, basically like right there. But as the disk obtains a shallower and shallower angle, the distance from the pivot point to the center of gravity increases, and gravity operates more perpendicularly to that lever arm. It's the difference between using a crowbar like this and pushing down like that and pushing like this. You're going to get more leverage this way. For that reason, gravity's torque increases as the disk loses its height, and precession increases in rate. Okay, I think you guys are ready to see a magic trick that I learned from the pillowcase of terror. You ready? So here we are with just a regular old penny. In fact, the very same penny that was in my mouth just moments ago. But watch. Corn cob. Whoa! Amazing, right? But of course, this isn't a real penny. You couldn't spin this in a store. If you want something of true value, try this one. Cob corn. Whoa! Curiosity Box 12, now shipping. We only have a few of these units left, but it's amazing. The stuff inside here is basically a mystery, but a few spoilers. The deck of cards that we specially designed are in here. I tweeted about those earlier. And this shirt. This is the shirt in the next box. It works in very cool ways with the red-blue 3D glasses. Now, Euler's Disk and the Gyroscope are not in this box, not at all. However, you can buy them in the Curiosity Box store. That's right, our store is really maturing. I'm pretty much in love with it right now. It's full of fantastic stuff. VSAUCE t-shirts, cipher wheels, mobile microscopes, vapor equilibrium demonstrators, Galton boards. Yeah, I'm talking the kind of brain food that does a body good. But I've got some really big news for you guys. You know CuriosityStream, the streaming service that is just full of scientific documentaries, historical documentaries. They've got that new one, Return to the Moon. Very good. Almost all of their content, guys, is just extremely handsome. Love it. Okay, anyway, they've done something really, really awesome. Because of them, the next 1,000 people to subscribe to the Curiosity Box will get completely free shipping inside the United States. If you're international, you'll get $8 off your shipping. But that's not all. Are you already a subscriber? Because of CuriosityStream, you're going to be getting $5 to spend in the Curiosity Box store. Pretty cool. So thank you so much to them. CuriosityStream has a great mission. To get 30 days free, you can use the code down in the description. Oh, by the way, that's not even all they did. They also enabled us to put an extra item in this box we otherwise wouldn't have. So, thank you, CuriosityStream. Stay curious, everyone. And as always, thanks for watching.
Let me be the one. Let me be the one. Let me be the one to wipe the tears from your eyes. Just let me be the one.
Bonus content alert. That was just me, Michael, not a robot. Gotcha, right? Anyway, this is bonus content, as my robot voice said. This is footage we shot in slow motion of Euler's Disk. It's pretty cool. We have also an arrow on top, so you can see that as the angle between the disk and the mirror gets smaller, the precession gets faster. And because of that, the spin becomes slower and slower and slower. As you watch, you can see that the arrow rotates around slower and slower and slower. Enjoy.